If you are numbing out to one experience, to one emotion in your life, you are numbing out to everything. Every time we disassociate from an experience, every time we try to turn the volume down on an emotion that arises and we numb out to it, we inevitably also numb out to things like joy and contentment and awe. To exclude grief and suffering from life is to exclude life itself. All love is accompanied by grief. It's the paradox of love that it all at once makes us so strong and stable and held, and is also the very thing that cuts us. Ask any parent who has their heart broken again and again and again over their child, and it never stops, even when their child becomes an adult, because it's the very nature of love itself. On the first day of yoga teacher training, we always ask students which of the 5 primary human emotions is the best emotion. And inevitably, they always choose joy or contentment or both, at the expense of poor anger and poor grief and sadness and envy. To be a fully expressed human means that we have to embrace the full range of what it is to be a human. And to be human is to experience rage and to experience joy and to experience sadness and deep grief. All of these things are what make us human, and our highs are high because of the moments that we have been in grief, and grief is a pathway and a doorway to a richer and deeper emotional experience if we allow ourselves to meet with that grief, to hold it, to hold ourselves with compassionate listening, and to allow ourselves to come out the other side of it. And I get it, because the early days of grief, it can feel like C.S. Lewis described it as a spiral that you don't know if it's going up or down, and some days you think you're going up and then it's just down again. And there's days when it feels like the world is ending, and yet it always begins again. This is what it is to be human. And to learn to hold it all and to learn to hold ourselves is so critical, because when we push our anger aside, when we push our grief aside, when we try to dismiss it or to distract ourselves, it doesn't go away. One of my teachers, Douglas Brooks, says to be grateful when the demons announce themselves. When we tend to our anger and our grief, we're given the space to integrate it. But when we dismiss it, those demons, for lack of a better word, and I don't love calling them that, we'll call them contrary energies, that material, when we ignore it, it doesn't go away, it just becomes this underlying thing. And it influences our behavior and the way that we feel, whether we're acknowledging it or not. But we have space to be more than just one thing. And what I can tell you from my own life of spousal loss and numerous tragedies that I've encountered is that every time that I have allowed myself to meet my grief and my pain and to transmute it and to be with it, those wounds become wells of wisdom. And I am empowered to feel all the more deeply because I have felt so deeply, because I've allowed myself to be touched by pain, and I've allowed the pain to be real. And it heightens everything else when you allow yourself to feel. The joy becomes more joyful, and the sunset becomes the thing that pulls tears to your eyes because your heart has been touched by awe. And there is an invitation every single time that you feel triggered, every single time that you feel like something is coming up, to integrate it, harmonize it back into yourselves, back into your being, to hold it rather than to turn away from it with this energy, this running away. There's an invitation for you to welcome yourself home. And this is so much of our yoga project. Sarah Powers said to me once that the first 2 years of a real yoga journey is grief work. Our grief work is a potent land of healing, and it's an invitation back into your heart. So today, I would challenge you to be with whatever's arising in your awareness, to see if you can sit with it, maybe even take the story, the narrative off of the grief, and just feel the feeling in your body, in your chest, in your lungs, to allow tears to flow or rage to come up, and to simply sit with it without turning away. without looking away. Look it dead in the eye, look yourself in the eye, and hold yourself gently. Tobin Zivan says, it's human, it's innocent, so strap in. When we start treating it as innocent and human, it takes the pathology off of our experiences. It's not pathological to sit in grief. It's not pathological to be angry. And in order to be the happiest, most content, joyful being that you are, it requires that you also embrace these other components of being human and to get honest about them. To be a fully expressed human, like a child, but with human spirit and wisdom that a child lacks. Little tiny human you didn't have the skills and the mechanisms to deal with these tough emotions and with these rejections and these wounds, but you do. You have this beautiful higher mind. You have this breath. You have this ability to look back and to look ahead. So use the tools that you have. Stir up your love and hold yourself with the same compassion and care that you would for a best friend or for a child. This is the invitation. And this is in part what your practice has to offer you. When you're moving through your asanas, when you're sitting in your meditation seat and things start to come up, rather than getting out of the discomfort, can you go in a little more? There's a point after which you stay when the fear and the grief and those things start to lift. And if it's too much when you start to touch that pain, come out of it and tap into the part of yourself that is okay. This is my practice. I sit with my emotions, and then when it's time to come out, when I'm ready to leave that experience and to come back to it another day, I just find the part of myself that's okay. I close my eyes and I feel it. And I like to picture it as a color of paint, and then that color of paint expanding throughout all of my being. And you have this opportunity as well. The story that you put on your pain, I promise it will be there later. But if you can take it off and just feel the feelings, you'll probably find that a lot of that grief is ageless and much older than whatever experience you've attached it to. And when you can heal that through integration and sitting with it, you might find the narrative loses its sting. Today, can you be with what is? Can you be present with non-judgmental awareness? And can you love yourself with a little more compassionate holding? Life isn't going anywhere, pain isn't going anywhere, and the sooner we learn to hold the paradox of love and grief, of pain and joy, the sooner we embrace that paradox as being simply human, the sooner we set ourselves free. Be so well today, and hold yourself with kindness.